Yeah, I said you should have pollinators.
All right, if you want to go ahead and start that camera again and start any other cameras.
Right.
Okay, Larry, if you want to ask the next question. Devin.
Can we come back to me? I really don't have a question right now.
All right, Barry.
I don't have a question.
You talked about pollinators at the beginning. I have no idea what those are. Could you explain?
Yeah. So pollinators are a huge issue worldwide, and they're an issue because they're in decline. So say you go into the cafeteria and you're stopping at the salad bar, or you're even grabbing some fried chicken sandwich or something like that. One out of every 3 bites of food that we eat requires a pollinator to be produced. So basically, a pollinator, it could be a mosquito, it could be a bee, it could be a butterfly, it could be a moth, birds. They are what pollinates the plant so that they can produce fruit. And that could be a cucumber, that could be a strawberry, that could be a soybean, that could be a tomato, apples, oranges. All of these require some insect or bird pollinator to make the food that we need to eat. So right now what we're facing is a pollinator crisis, where our pollinators, those especially bees, are declining at an alarming rate. There are several farms in this country that are unable to produce the food that we need because they can't get the bees that they need to produce that food. In our state, we have several native pollinators, several species of native bees that are also in decline for 2 main reasons, and those are habitat loss, so loss of prairie, loss of native plants, and then our increased use of pesticides that are now being known to kill our needed pollinators and kill our bees.
Okay. Devin, I'm going to come back to you after 2 other students to sort of be thinking ahead that you do need to ask a question. So, Rachael, we'll go next. We'll go to you next. No. Are you passing? Oh, you're passing the camera? Yeah. Go ahead. Try not to put your fingers on the front of the camera. It should say recording. All right. Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to know more about the rain gardens.
Oh.
Because I've never really heard of
Yeah, so rain gardens are one of the many options for stormwater best management practice. So what that means basically is instead of rain coming off the roof, going down these eaves, and then being siphoned off into the roads, which how many of you have driven on the roads around here when it's raining and you almost stall your car? Yeah. That's stormwater management issue. So instead of the rain being shunted off into the street where it can cause flooding, it basically comes down through a pipe and enters the rain garden. So it's capturing rainwater, and these native plants help the water soak into the soil instead of flooding the streets. And the way they do that is our native prairie plants, instead of having a root mass that is about this long, like our turf grass does, they will have roots that could be anywhere from 6 to even 20 feet long. And you can imagine how much that helps water filter down into the soil instead of flooding our neighborhood.
Okay. Owen, you want to go next?
Yeah, you said fixing social justice issues, but like specifically, do you want to do that?
I didn't hear the question.
You said you want to do plans about fixing social justice issues.
Mm-hmm.
What like specifically would you like to do?
For example, like I'm not as well versed in social justice issues as I would like to be. So a lot of this is a learning process for me. But one thing that I'm really interested in for next year I want the major theme to be food. And again, I'm going to continue the minor theme of pollinators because they're so closely tied. I'm particularly interested in the idea of food equity and food deserts. So we have several neighborhoods, even in Cedar Rapids, where fresh, healthy food is not an option. People may have to go several miles, or dozens of miles before they are able to find a grocery store that has affordable and healthy food. And that type of transportation is not always possible. So when we start to look at those types of food deserts, then we allow those to occur, we are marginalizing that neighborhood and basically not giving them an opportunity to be healthy in their lives, which is going to increase their healthcare costs. It often can decrease their mental health and emotional health along with their physical. So I'm really interested in food equity and making Cedar Rapids and looking at food equity worldwide. Who gets access to healthy food and how can we make that equal for all?
Okay, Devin, we're gonna come back to you now.
Okay. I understand the main goal, but do y'all guys have like other like smaller goals, like on a smaller setting than that overall goal y'all guys have?
Sure. So say for next year, one of the things we have is a sustainability scholarship for incoming freshmen and transfer students. Right now we have 5 in the program. Say next year, I would like to bump that up and increase that to 7 or 8. That's a very short-term goal. But one of my other goals is getting, wow, I just lost my train of thought. Sometimes it's hard to, when you've been looking at long-term goals so long, it's hard to like figure out, remember your short-term. But a great example is working on our curriculum. So we have a staff fellow, Joy Oaks, who is looking into a lot of our departments, like across the board. So from nursing to criminal justice, social work to the English department. Where do we have sustainability in our curriculum? And then where do we have the gaps? How can we fill the gaps and get sustainability across the board, at least in each department? That's like a 1 to 2 year goal for us. And including with that is getting faculty that are currently not involved or think that their class does not include a sustainable option.
Okay.
Engaging with them and getting them to engage with our office to see that it is possible and it's easier than we think.
All right, Lincoln.
My question's gonna be short-term goals, so I gotta think. I really don't know. Can I come back?
Okay.
Sorry.
So you said you started in January.
Mm-hmm.
I was just wondering what you did before you started.
So before this, I worked for 4 years as a research assistant, basically. My title was environmental technician. I managed an environmental chemistry lab, so basically I worked at the National Great Rivers Research and Education Center. And what that center focused on was big river ecology. There are lots of field stations that study like ocean ecology and tides and things like that. But there's really not that many that focus on large rivers, freshwater, and things like that. So we did watershed research, basically looking and working with farmers, small communities, and seeing and researching ways that we can take better care of our land in an effort to take better care of our water. So we focused on mostly nutrient pollution, like nitrogen and phosphorus. So I did a lot of chemistry.
You ever see that, you started with seismonics, earworm in my head, but that's not relevant. It was a rock group in the 90s. Never mind, my memory goes way back. Dennis.
I know you talked about earlier, like with increasing the awareness of like people like pollinators and stuff like that, getting more use of those. Do you plan on increasing like the awareness citywide, and if so, how?
That's a really good point. One of my goals is not just staying within Mount Mercy, but getting Mount Mercy connected with the outside community. I think that's really key. And there are several organizations around, Monarch Project, Indian Creek Nature Center. They are also doing pollinator outreach, and they will have groups where they work with homeowners to increase native plants in their own landscaping. So that's a really great way to start.